Hi everyone, welcome to this session of the Tiger Academy, US Stock Financial Statements for Beginners. In the last class, we have compared the income statements to personal budgets. Have you got it? In this section, I'll focus on three key indicators in the income statement: total revenue, gross profit, and gross margin. After figuring them out, you'll be able to identify the good companies that have a sustainable competitive advantage. If you can buy these companies at an attractive price, the upside could be huge. Let's start with total revenue of the income statements. You might think, well, Company A with tens of billions of dollars in annual total revenue is much better than Company B with billions of dollars in annual revenue. But is that true? I'll use the personal budgets as an example to find the answer. Let's analyze Jack and Rose's personal budgets. Then tell me which guy lives a better life. A. Jack works as a product manager in Silicon Valley, so his salary is relatively higher than the average, with $9,000 per month. His personal budget is as follows. B. Rose, Jack's classmate, works in Seattle. Compared to the average salary level in Silicon Valley, the average salary level in Seattle is lower. In this case, Rose earns $6,000 a month. Rose's personal budget is as follows. After comparing the two personal budgets, which lifestyle will you prefer based only on the money left every month? I believe most of us will have the same choice, Rose's lifestyle. But why? If we just look at a salary, Jack indeed earns $3,000 USD more than Rose every month. But when we look at fixed expenses, Jack needs to pay $3,960 more than Rose. Superficially, Jack's salary is higher than Rose's. However, Rose's discretionary income is $3,810, while Jack only has $2,850 left after paying for fixed expenses. Generally, more money in your account means less pressure in your life. Therefore, Rose's lifestyle is more cost-effective in terms of the money saved every month. Let's compare the personal budgets to the company's income statements. If you were an investor, which company would you choose? Jack's company or Rose's company? From the perspective of gross profit, you surely choose Rose's company. Here we come to the first conclusion of our class. We can't simply judge one company by looking at its revenue. You may ask, what should I look at? This brings us to the second point, gross profit. Warren Buffett, the investment guru, is very good at picking companies. He once said that gross profit is the key metric of long-term profitability. Only companies with sustainable competitive advantage can maintain profitability over the long term. What is this gross profit that Buffett takes so serious? Why does Buffett focus on this number? Gross profit equals revenue minus cost of revenue. As we mentioned in the last class, cost of revenue is the total cost of manufacturing and delivering the product or service to consumers. But you should know that the cost of revenue doesn't include SG&A, R&D, and depreciation expenses. Therefore, low cost of revenue is very important. However, high gross profit doesn't mean everything. Buffett said, firms with excellent long-term economics tend to have consistently higher margins. In short, there are two keywords: high margin and consistency. The first keyword, high gross margin. How to calculate gross margin? The basic equation is gross margin equals gross profit divided by revenue. As we have learned that gross profit equals revenue minus cost of revenue. Therefore, gross margin equals revenue minus cost of revenue divided by revenue. Then it becomes a simple math problem. If a company's gross margin is high, the cost of revenue, for example, the cost of sales is relatively low. The low cost of revenue implies companies can better manage the process in supply chain, production, and transportation. Or the companies have brand effect, and thus pricing power. Therefore, companies with high gross margins are more competitive. I would like to remind you that gross margin varies greatly in different industries. For example, the software industry has a median gross margin of 59% by the end of 2021. The top 10 companies in this table all have a gross margin over 91%. The industry leader, Microsoft, only has a gross margin of 65%. While in the traditional manufacturing industries like auto and auto components industries, the median gross margin is only 16%. You can tell from this table that the average of gross margin is only 35%, even for the top 10 companies. In general, we can distinguish the competitive companies from comparing their gross margins. To be specific, gross margin over 40% means one company has certain competitive advantage. Gross margin lower than 40% indicates the company is in a highly competitive industry. However, if the average gross margin of an industry is less than 20%, there is an excessive competition in this industry. We're better off staying away from the stock of any company in that industry. Let's look at the second keyword, consistency. If the company can sustain its high gross margin, its competitive advantage is not consistent. When many companies are facing a crisis, they may also break out a high gross margin for a period of time through some means of financial fraud. Mr. Qingwei Chen, Director of Tiger Brokers Investment Research, believes that it is meaningless to look at a certain data in the income statement in isolation. The income statement reflects incremental change. Therefore, it's necessary to identify the feature of growth in the income statements. If the growth is not sustainable, the company doesn't have long-term competitive advantage. We need to look at gross margins for the past 5 years or more. Okay, let's summarize what we've learned today. First, we have learned that we can't simply look at revenue to judge whether one company has good profitability or not. Secondly, we need to focus on the gross profit and gross margin of the company. Thirdly, gross margin is a key indicator to access companies' sustainable competitive advantage. Within an industry, companies who have higher gross margin means these companies have higher competitive advantage. Fourthly, we have learned how to calculate gross profit equals revenue minus cost of revenue, and gross margin equals revenue minus cost of revenue divided by revenue. It's pretty straightforward, isn't it? In the next class, we'll continue to explain the terms of the income statements to help you identify good companies.